because we are about to get fucking wrecked.
I've been doing a lot of thinking about the kind of videos I want to make on this channel. Now, for the longest time, I only wanted to make walkthroughs that were start to finish, showing all the gameplay so that you can just go to the section that you're struggling with and see how it's done. I didn't like the idea of any kind of video that differed from this formula because it just seemed messy when you go into a channel and you have all these different types and you have to try and find what you're after. That said, I realised my channel is too small and I'm way too unsuccessful to start making multiple channels and spreading what very little content I have across multiple threads. So today I decided to make something a little bit different. A new series I'm potentially going to be calling Hand Guides. Now these are going to be nice bite-sized videos, about bite-sized, maybe about 15 to 20 minutes videos that you can sit through and watch as me explains through some of these games, and that, you know, will save you about having to sit through the behemoth 3-hour videos that have come to populate my channel. Now these are mostly going to be used for games where a conventional walkthrough might not be appropriate, such as games with branching paths or non-linear gameplay or a significant element of RNG. I'm still going to be doing my normal walkthroughs, but this is something that allows a bit more creative freedom for me. So with that in mind, the first game I wanted to tackle is Total War Warhammer, because I have been obsessed with this game recently. I have been spending an inordinate amount of time planning through it, and specifically I want to start with the Chaos campaign. Now, I'm a Dark Souls player, and as you may have found with my previous videos, I refuse to play games on anything other than the highest difficulty. I just don't feel like I'm getting the real experience or the real challenge, and a big part of the enjoyment for me is struggling with something and overcoming that challenge. Now, Total War games, especially in recent years, have become damn challenging, especially if you whack it up onto Legendary. Worse still, with a lack of manual saving that you can do on these difficulties, a 12-hour campaign can be lost due to just one major misplay on the campaign map. So I'm going to share my knowledge and wisdom with you and hopefully give you some help on how to beat this campaign. Now, just a caveat, I don't claim to be some strategic god. The great thing about these types of games is that there are multiple angles you can approach them from and multiple ways of completing them. I'm just going to show you what worked for me and what should hopefully work for you. So first things first, start your game, click on Chaos, and then fuck Archeon and pick Kholek Suneater. As Chaos, you're going to be raiding and sacking cities regularly. Being able to attack a walled city without wasting turns building up siege equipment and allowing your victim to reinforce is very important. Archeon can't do this, and Sigvald only can whilst his starting Hell Cannon remains. It's going to take many more turns before you can build more. Kholek, on the other hand, doesn't have to worry about equipment. He's a giant fuck-off, big-ass beast shag-off ogre thing, and he can just bash the gates down himself. Add to this just how monstrously strong and overpowered he is our clear choice for a starting lord. When you begin your game, you want to immediately go and sack Bersonling camp and awaken the Bersonling tribe. These guys are going to be your main allies for the start of the game, and in actual fact for most of it, so it's important to move in such a way to help maximise their chance of survival. This is why instead of continuing through the northern reaches, we're going to want to bring the fight to Kislev as soon as possible. You will be able to move 3/4 of your movement range and still encamp to recruit units. As most of these units recruit in one turn, you'll find that Chaos is one of the few factions that can build an army while still on the move. Now, as you're doing this, I want you to go into your horde buildings and demolish your tribal relic. And there's a reason for this. The Chaos horde buildings work on a system where each subsequent building requires more horde surplus to build the next building. By demolishing the tribal relic, we reduce the cost of the blasphemous icon down to 2 surplus. Build it and start adding Chaos warriors as we march south. These soldiers are incredibly tough mid-tier units with a whopping 100 armour. Most enemy armies will not be able to field troops equivalent to them for another 100 turns, and these are the ones we're going to use to blitzkrieg our way through it. So now it's time to start fucking shit up. When you come to Volksgrad, there should be very little resistance. You could probably auto-resolve this without any problem, but feel free to fight on the battle if you want to see what kind of units we're dealing with. Once you've done that, we're going to be marching straight forward to Prague. If you've been quick enough, there should be no garrison, but even if there is, that's nothing to worry about. We're going to take the fight to them Don't be a pussy, fight it on the battlefield, even if it says it's in our disadvantage. Now the strategy for Chaos, and specifically if you have Kolek as your leader, is almost like a blitzkrieg. We want to hit them hard and we want to hit them fast. So as soon as the fight starts, select your entire army and bum rush the enemy gates, being sure to move your Marauder horsemen to attack in melee so they're not just standing around getting picked off by crossbowmen or the towers. Now this might seem like a dumb, almost suicidal plan, but trust me, there is method to the madness. As soon as your men are at the gates, the archers close to the wall and your towers will not be able to fire on anymore. The enemy won't be able to shoot at you, and you'll be in a relatively safe spot just in front of the gate. Have Kolek smash down the gates and pour your troops forward. Now this is where a hint of micromanagement is going to become really necessary. You want to send your troops forward into whatever poor bastards make up the enemy's first line of defence. Try to focus on getting the stronger Chaos Warriors in first, whilst keeping a few Marauders on standby outside the gate. From here, Kolek is going to be your hammer. He does monstrous amounts of damage and he has quite high health, but his Achilles tendon, as it were, is that he has quite low armour. If you leave him to his own devices, he has a horrible tendency to wander off into the thick of battle and get surrounded, where just massed ankle stabs are going to bring him down. You want to keep him behind your own troop line, where the more heavily armoured Chaos Warriors and expendable Marauders can tank most of the damage for him. Now, due to his extreme height, he shouldn't have much trouble reaching over and smashing the enemy, whilst taking minimal damage himself if you set him up in this manner. Now, if the enemy are ever foolish enough to leave their missile troops up top without support, get your Marauders to climb the ladders and slay them. If you start getting shot from either side, make a hole in the line and send your hounds in to chew them up. This fighting here is going to be long and bloody. It's going to take a while to win, but your Chaos troops are beasts in melee, and Kolek will be smashing away happily. It's a war of attrition, but it's one that you will win and will only become more effective at as you get better troops in the late game. Also, by keeping your units close up, it ensures that Kolek's aura leadership bonus extends over your whole army. This is especially important for the more cowardly Marauder units not to run away, and means that they are going to fight either to their last or very close to that. As you start to push further into their base, try to get your Warhounds or Marauders to run around the town and flank their remaining units in the centre. If you can surround them, you're going to break them much easier and leave with fewer casualties afterwards. Once the battle has ended, be sure to check your endgame kill count. If you micromanage well enough, it's not unusual for Kolek to have over 300 kills in these types of siege missions. By now, you should have accumulated a few points for Kolek to spend. How you spend these first points is going to be very vital. Place the first one in Route Marcher, as extra campaign movement is going to be very important for outmaneuvering enemy armies. Place the next 3 in Tribes of Chaos, as increasing horde growth will be important at all stages of this game. The quicker your horde grows, the quicker you're going to get the stronger units. Place your 5th point in whatever blue skill you wish. This one's not too important. Get Unholy Resilience so you can place the 7th point in Lightning Strike. This is hands down the most important ability for you. Your army will, in time, become exceedingly powerful and almost unbeatable 1 versus 1. The only threat you have is from getting overwhelmed by multiple army stacks at once. Lightning Strike is going to allow you to divide and hit these armies and come out on top. After you get Lightning Strike, how you want to spend the rest of the points is very heavily down to your playstyle. Personally, I prefer to buff an army over than one unit, but there are others who swear by going down the yellow line and making him as strong as possible with hard skin and veteranry to make sure he lasts longer. Personally, I think Kolek does a fine job of screwing people over naturally. He doesn't need more points, so I prefer to go down the red one and buff up the army. That said, make sure you save 3 points for the Lord of Storm, Storm Rage, and to a lesser extent Aura of Chaos. These 3, especially the first 2, are incredibly powerful upgrades, primarily because it's a magic spell that doesn't rely on the winds of magic, meaning that it's only reliant on the cooldown of it, so you'll be able to spam it throughout fights whilst also having a sorcerer to support your army. Now, when you get the next 2 characters, this is kind of depend on RNG elements. Around this time or within the next few turns, you should be getting an Exalted Hero and a Chaos Sorcerer. Embed both of these into your army and they will make up your left and right hand generals for the majority of the game. I like to ensure I have at least one spellcaster in each army, as it seems a shame to let those winds of magic go to waste. That said, I never really understood the point of having more than one magic user in an army. They all draw from the same winds of magic, and since there's a limited supply, it seems much more useful to replace him with a combat specialist unit. It's why I never like taking a Sorcerer of Archaon, as he's already a Master of Fire. You can do this if you want to invest his points elsewhere, but for personal preference of mine, I think it's better that he's made up of that himself. With the Exalted Hero, you want to go down the blue path initially, focusing on abilities that are going to allow you to train your army as well as ensure that new recruits come with a high level of experience. Later on you can focus on his martial prowess, but these abilities are invaluable and will have much more useful effects the earlier you get them. Also bear in mind that his martial abilities can be improved by armor and equipment, so the yellow path is almost always less important than the blue one. For the Sorcerer on the other hand, you want to focus on spells straight away. I personally don't like putting 2 points into any category along here. It doesn't make your spells any stronger, and yeah, a 50% cooldown reduction sounds good, but when you have to wait for the winds of magic to recharge anyway, it's going to be seeing limited use. When overclocked and powerful spells are going to be using 28 magic, your cooldowns are probably going to finish long before you have the mana to use it again anyway. That's not even including the possibility of you using other spells in the meantime. Unless you have a particular playstyle that literally focuses on using only one low level spell over and over again, don't bother and instead put 1 point in every ability here. With the Sorcerer, an element of RNG comes in. What lore the Sorcerer you get is going to be completely random. Now all 4 are powerful, but my personal favourites are the Lore of Death and the Lore of Shadows. Whatever Sorcerer you do get, it's best to work with them. You've got a long campaign ahead and plenty of time to figure out what spells you can use and what spells you favour. Now whilst I've been waffling on about point allocation, you've probably noticed that the Kislevians are starting to send forces up. You want to route march and retreat back to Bersonling territory for now. You will notice that when you're in allied territory, you gain troops as other factions do in their own territory. This doesn't just count for the northern tribes, and it may be an idea to form alliances later on in the game to speed up replenishments as you move further south. Otherwise it's going to take anywhere between 5 to 10 turns to get your army back to full strength. For now, be sure to encamp on your allied territory to speed up the process. By now, Bersonling should have built up some armies, and should hopefully be in a good position to defend themselves against whatever Kislevian armies are sent to seek revenge. Even more so if you raise the cities and left chaos waits for them to suffer attrition on their way up. For the time being, we want to press north, hoping that Bersonling will follow you. When you come to Frozen Landing, sack it, raise it, do both, one after the other, whatever you want. It's good to get some money early to help with research. As we've abandoned use of the Marauders, there's little point going down the first 2 tech trees, so you want some cash for stacking up to move up to the 3rd tech area. Now, it might be tempting to raise a second army at this point, especially considering the forces the Dwarves to the north have. However, I would urge you not to do this. The reasons are pretty fucking numerous, to be honest. First of all factions get 2.5 grand background income. For Chaos, this does not change if we have more hordes. There's only one building chain that actually provides income, and even that's only a paltry 300 gold per turn when fully upgraded, while the rest just reduce the upkeep of specific units. Given how your armies will also suffer attrition when close by, using 2 armies to reinforce each other in battle is not as advisable as other races, especially not in the early game. Later on, it is going to be necessary to have a couple of armies suffer that attrition, get close together to beat a stronger force, but for now we're going to focus on outmaneuvering people instead of forcing on strong, blunt engagements. So for the time being, it's far more important to have just a single army fielding the best units possible as opposed to 2 moderately strong armies. Once your force is strong enough, you're going to notice that the enemy will rarely come out to fight you unless they have 2 or more stacks themselves. They will know that they don't have the forces necessary to take you in an open fight, so will send their armies to defend certain cities, allowing you to roam free and pick and choose what targets you want. It's actually possible to complete this campaign using only one army if you're very careful about how you move. But for the time being, we're just going to keep going with Kolek, sack and loot what we can to build up a nice excess of favour for when we do decide to bring a second general in, and make sure you sacrifice captives whenever you can following battle to ensure that we can get Archeon a bit later on. Now these dwarves are going to be a major threat and a thorn of your side if you don't take them out. They're going to threaten the Bersonling, and that's the last thing we want. The problem is they usually have 2 full stack armies defending on their fortresses. Now with luck, Bersonling will come to help, and if you position carefully, you can use these tribesmen as reinforcements in battle to massively increase your odds of winning. But you're going to have to pick your targets here, as a head-on fight will likely fail. If you're feeling brave, lightning strike one of the armies and take the fight on the field. You'll find that using the same strategy we used in Prague, you'll actually have an easier time winning siege battles than straight up land battles. Wars of attrition will be even more in your favour now that you have stronger troops. The longer the fighting persists, the more opportunity you will have to cast Lord of Storms and other spells. Remember that Lord of Storms doesn't cost mana and is only limited by cooldown. Spam whenever you see a large congregation of units and blow them up. Now raid, loot, rape, pillage, do whatever you want, just take care of these dwarves. Be careful though, as the humans are going to start sending troops up to deal with you. Manoeuvre as you need to and retreat if you need to. With the horde growth growing, your forces are going to be getting stronger regardless of what happens, so don't feel embarrassed about having to go back to the Bersonling territory and rest up if you need to. Pick your fights and don't losing battles. I found that if you depart for the sea, enemies will rarely chase you. Use this to escape and raid new territories if the situation ever grows too dire. Remember that you only have one army. If Kolek goes down, it's game over. Now once you've taken care of the dwarves, you have 2 choices. Either continue rampaging the north, sacking and awakening tribes and trying to build up that surplus favour for later on in the game, or press southwards and start spreading chaos now. The former is only really useful if you want to awaken 4 tribes so you can get Sigvald the Magnificent later on. Now whilst the awakened tribes are loyal to you, they are not loyal to each other. They will frequently go to war, forcing you to pick a side anyway. If you choose not to awaken tribes, it's pretty easy to get some diplomacy going with the Norscan tribes anyway as you begin rampaging down south. If you do want to fight them to get Sigvald, that's fine, but just be aware you're probably going to have to kill some of the tribes you awaken later on anyway. Now around this time, the quest battle for Kolek will likely have appeared. Don't do this until you've replaced all of your marauders. Okay, a few horsemen and warhounds still with the range units is fine, but you don't want any marauder infantry. You will have to face 4 armies here and need tough troops to wade through it all. This quest is not necessary to do, but will give Kolek a very powerful weapon. A lot of people don't seem to be aware that you are actually able to teleport to a quest at any time for a small fee, teleporting you back and allowing you to do the quest without messing up your warpath. First of all, you are tasked with defeating an army of greenskins. Now whilst battling away, 5 units of fell bats will attack. These guys can do little against your chaos warriors and will likely crumble quickly. Once these are dealt with, a force of Varghese attack. Now these are going to pose a much greater threat and you'll want to reform your troops to deal with them. As the last of the greenskins get mocked up, a Terrorgeist will come forth. Surround him quickly to get him crumbling and mitigate the losses. If you have any magic that can reduce leadership, I would also recommend using that now as well. Now finally, as the last stage of this quest, a vampire army will spring forth with Graveguard and Hexwraiths. Move your forces back to give them time to catch their breath and wait for them to come to you. If you have a Marauder Horseman unit available, use these to harass and try to entice the Hexwraiths to attack ahead of the main army. Now these guys are magical, so they're not going to take much damage unless you have some exalted heroes, as these deals magical damage. Push them forward towards the Hexwraiths and try to surround them to let them crumble just like we did with the Terrorgeist. The following battle will be massively in your favour. Focus on the heavier troops and try not to let your champion units get surrounded by zombies. The zombies can't do much damage, but they will tank your morale if you get swarmed. On the flip side, if you can take them out, it's going to help contribute to mass routing of their army. Once this is done, continue your campaign as usual, and camping to regain unit strength as you go along. As you start to build up an excess of favour, at times it may be more prudent to merge weakened units and recruit new ones. This is only going to take one turn, whilst replenishing your forces could take several. Keep replacing the weaker units as you do start to get stronger buildings. You're going to want to focus on getting Dragon Ogre Gathering. Now surprisingly, the Dragon Ogre Shagoths actually cost less than normal Dragon Ogres if you've picked Kolek as your leader. These are faster and better than even the Chaos Giants. A few of those in your army makes them nigh unstoppable. It's actually possible and even feasible to just have an army with 20 Dragon Ogre Shagoths, although I wouldn't recommend it. They have low armour and are best used in conjunction with chosen units, using them to tank most of the damage whilst they mutilate away. I wouldn't worry too much with hell cannons in this army, as your Dragon Ogres can batter down gates just fine on their own. Your main force should be made up of various branches of chosen, supported by some Chaos Knights or Feral Manticores to chase down range units and artillery. A few Chariots of Troll might be nice as well, but remember that it takes time to build up Horde surplus, so focus on the vital units first. Now it's important to keep in mind what your end game here, and your goal is to eliminate the Empire, the Bretonnians and the Dwarves. Okay, it's not necessary to kill every other faction. In fact, with this in mind, I would highly recommend trying to become friendly with the vampire counts. A not too difficult feat since you're murdering humans by the thousands. If you get them to be your defensive or military allies, you'll be able to use them to replenish a lot quicker. Now you'll actually take attrition due to the vampiric corruption when you go into their territories, but place your armies in encamp stance and watch that replenishment skyrocket. Around turns 130 to 140, Sarthoreal the Everwatcher will appear with 2 armies. Now it's the time to summon the Lord of End Times and bring Archaon up. His horde will be small, so can only recruit basic marauders at first. Fuck this. Delete your tribal relic and transfer the majority of your troops over from Kolek. His camp should be built up pretty far, so you can recruit 5 or more units a turn and transfer them over. As Archaon does not yet have the same high tier buildings, upkeeps for these units will be much higher. Chances are you're going to be losing anywhere between 5 grand or so a turn. This is fine. You should have a healthy deposit by now and we'll be raiding again soon. Once that's done, you should have 2 very strong armies filled with chosen and other monstrosities. Seek out and crush the Chaos Uprising. If you want to, you can ignore Birdbrain and continue on your warpath. Just be careful. He can move very far each turn and has a tendency to seek you out when your troops are weakened from fighting. So it's best not to lose too much or try to focus too much on fighting until you've dealt with him. Pinning him down can be hard, however. If your forces are roughly evenly matched, he shouldn't run. If you haven't done so already, researching Infernal March will make pinning him down much easier. Sarthoreal's army is strong, but yours should be stronger. Lightning strike if need to and take out the weak horde. Chosen backed up by monstrous infantry should be able to hold their end. Send cavalry or manticores to destroy his hell cannons and kill the pretender. That is of course only if you need to. In my playthrough here I didn't even get the opportunity to do battle with the Git. By the time I had organised my armies to fight him, he had already been taken down by the Norscan tribes. Quite an anticlimactic fate, but it is what it is. Once Sarthoreal is defeated, the hard part is over and the beginning of the end can begin. Continue being cautious and smart, not biting off more than you can chew. The remaining factions will have likely banded into a larger force and you can expect to face up to 6 or more full stacks from certain forces. In a pinch, or 2 forces can attack together. To combine their might, just be aware of the attrition they will take the following turn. For the most part, you want to make sure all your generals have lightning strike and force the enemy to play your game. Remember, you don't have static buildings to defend, so you can send your forces to raid and harass to draw their attention, and then send another army in to attack undefended areas and cripple their economy. Raise a third army when you feel you've got enough favour, and swap the forces just as we did with Archaon. So by now you should have 3 nigh unstoppable armies. Hit your remaining enemies from multiple angles to bring down their empire. As you're expanding, you need to be careful, however. The biggest threat I found in my campaigns was actually the High Elves. Steer too far left and they are likely to declare war on you. The High Elves seem capable of moving much farther than other factions, and it's very easy for them to run you down and surround you with overwhelming numbers and high amounts of 20-stack armies. We don't need to take them out to win the long campaign, so we want to avoid them for as long as possible. Fortunately, they actually do a good job of taking out Bretonnia themselves most games, so we shouldn't have any need to head over that way. Once the Empire is dealt with, head towards the Dwarves. If the Elves do decide to join in, be prepared for a tough fight. These guys are arguably the most dangerous faction for the Chaos to face. They have a lot of fast moving units with armor piercing missiles which we're going to struggle against, and even Manticores are going to have trouble catching them down and pinning them in. If you see an elven army, even if it's just one and they seem relatively small, move out of range. A lot of time they like to send in stronger armies from outside your vision range and then use the small army that they already have to engage on you and use the other ones as reinforcements. I've lost a few stacks this time and you don't want to let that happen. Now once the elves have either been defeated or ignored, this is where the real challenge comes in. And by challenge, I mean grind. The Dwarves will likely have taken most of the Badlands, having close to 30 settlements under their thrall. This means they can field an inordinate number of full stack armies that are going to be difficult to overcome. They will outnumber you heavily. That's not as easy to do with Chaos. With 3 armies, even with most of the Horde buildings fully upgraded, you're still going to be bleeding in income every turn. So we are on a ticking time bomb. We have a limited amount of time to finish these guys off, which is why I would advise making 3 hordes and no more. God. If you make 4, it's just going to reduce the amount of time you have to finish these dwarven guys off. If we run out of favour and become bankrupt, we're going to start suffering attrition and have to downgrade our armies anyway. So there's no point getting a 4th one if it means we have very little time to actually do anything with them. Personally, I found 3 armies to be perfect, led by Kolek, Sigfield and Archeon. It meant that even if one of the hordes did get destroyed, I would still come back with a strong lord who could rebuild it quickly due to the points spent in tribal growth. Now actually penetrating through the Dwarves is a really difficult task. You can try lightning striking a few of them here and there, but they're going to have so many armies, be able to build up armies quickly and just generally replenish quicker than you can, that a war of attrition for the first time is not going to be something we can win by. Fortunately, the large mass of land they have leads them vulnerable to attack. Split your armies up into 3, send one down through Altdorf and the pass, put another one on sea and attack from the rear of the Badlands, and send your 3rd to attack through the mountains. We're going to want to hit the Dwarves from every angle possible. You'll find that they will send troops up to defend, which will leave other areas ripe for the taking. Hit them from multiple angles. Retreat where they are strongest, attack when they are weakest, and slowly tighten this band round on their territories. The more territories you take out, the less armies they'll be able to field, and you'll slowly bleed them dry. In fact, you'll find that when it finally comes to finishing the Dwarves off, it's not with a bang, but a whimper. They'll only have a few armies left and probably only a few provinces. Smash through, kill the Dwarves, and claim your victory. All in all, I found the Chaos campaign pretty fun, albeit a little bit grindy towards the end. It is the faction that took me the longest to finally take people out, just because I couldn't wield massive forces. I had to be strategic, and it ended up taking over twice as many turns as other factions to finally complete. As a playstyle though, they are pretty entertaining. They embody fast and hard attacks, and you'll want to blitzkrieg them. A lot of the fights you're going to be fighting are actually siege battles, and you'll find the best way to do this is just to be relentless. Attack the gate and keep pressing forward. When they start running, chase them down. Don't worry about fanning your troops out and attacking from multiple angles. Hit like a spear point, hard, fast, and just keep on going. The fear and terror you're going to be producing with your Great Dragon Shagoths as well as your Manticores means that you're going to get people running. And if you keep up the momentum, you can get the whole army routing very quickly. It's a shame really that the quest battles for Chaos are probably the least interesting of all of the lords. most of them, save for Kolek, are going to be you facing alternative Chaos Warlords that are usurpers and have risen up against Archeon or Sigvild. They're on the Chaos Wastelands and they're always a pretty dull affair with pretty dull backgrounds. It's a shame really, because I just feel like they could have done a lot more with this. Have them attack other factions, have them attack different enemies. I guess they did it because there wasn't much of an opportunity for your Chaos Forces to actually attack other high tier Chaos Forces, but so what? I get they're trying to get the whole fact that Chaos fights for strength and all that, but it would have been much more interesting if we could have had a grand battle against some Empire captain or a desperate fight against Grimgor or some other hordes. But it is what it is. Anyways, I hope you found this guide a little bit useful, and if you liked it, please let me know and I'll continue doing stuff like this, as these were quite enjoyable. I do apologise as this is a half-hour video and it's a bit longer than I wanted it to be, but hopefully you found it helpful. If you liked it, give it a like, comment, subscribe, all of that good jazz. Until next time, Cook Pow.